Welcome to the Wolverine Digest podcast, the best spot for objective and authentic coverage of Michigan athletics. If you want open dialogue, honest opinions, and in-depth coverage of the maize and blue, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Brandon Brown, joined as always by Chris Bradler.
I was going to start by saying go blue.
What is up, everybody? Thanks for joining us tonight. It's about 7:16, and I'm going to get right into it. So I had, I was thinking it's Wednesday. It's not like super slow. I mean, we've got stuff to talk about. We had the big camp that we went to. There's some Juwan Howard buzz out there, NIL stuff dropping a little bit here and there. So we had stuff to talk about, but I'm like, it's not like the regular season. It's not like the football season where we can fill up an hour in a blink. We had to. Chris and I were talking before about what we were going to fill the show up with, and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to come on at 7:15. We'll just chalk it up as we're going to do like a 45 minute episode. That's why we came on at 7:15. Chris said, no, I'm not going to let that fly. I'm not going to let that fly as the reason why you're on at 7:15. And I'm going to own it. I'm a man. I'm almost 40, almost 38. I'm coming up on 38. Chris is already there, and he wouldn't have it. He would not have it. So, Chris, do your work.
Listen, you know what? Listen. I don't want to. You threw me off. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to throw you under the bus. I wasn't prepared to do it. I had something else I was prepared to throw you under the bus for, and then you kind of, you threw me for a curveball here. So
that's what we're all about here. Curveball.
Hey, listen. All I'll say is, delays happen, shit happens, and we'll just kind of leave it at that. What I wanted to get at, Brandon.
Listen, I'll say this. What exactly am I supposed to do when Taco Bell will sell you a 3-item meal with a large Mountain Dew diesel for $5? What else am I supposed to do?
I mean,
I'm
just say no.
No. I'm supposed to eat that, and then I'm going to get thrown off at the last minute by nature.
You knew, that's the thing. You know what you're getting into. You know what you signed up for, and you knew what was going to happen.
All right.
I don't even know. Like, listen, what I do want to say is, before we get into, some of the stuff we're going to talk about in the weekend, I'm glad that we actually got to hang out a little bit in Chicago. It was difficult, with the circumstances. It was raining the whole time that we were there. But Brandon and I, we did get to go out to dinner together, and I was really excited to be able to do that. We went to a phenomenal pizza restaurant in downtown Chicago Pizza Oven and Grinder. I'm sure that there's, if anybody here, listens, has been to Chicago, it's one of the most, well-known pizza places there. Phenomenal food. But while we're there, Brandon shares a story with me about his trip to Subway. And it got me thinking. It got me thinking. I want to know out there. I want to take the pulse from our fans out there. Are you a send back person, or are you like, will you just, not send back your food? Like, where do you fall on sending things back versus not sending things back when you're a food customer? So Brandon tells me he's at a Subway restaurant. Well, an undisclosed Subway restaurant. And this Subway restaurant worker is working hard, working very, very hard, working so hard, in fact, that there's some perspiration. There's a little bit of, no, there's not a little bit. There's quite a bit of perspiration. So much so that some of that perspiration falls from the worker onto the wrapper of Brandon's, the paper of Brandon's Subway sandwich. Now, he cannot confirm that a droplet of sweat actually touched the sandwich, but he can definitively say that sweat touched the paper.
Correct.
Rather than send it back and embarrass this worker who was obviously working very hard, Brandon got all the trimmings and the fixins on the sandwich, and he went home and he ate the sandwich. So my question to you out there is, what would you do in that situation? You see a droplet of sweat fall out. It's not on the meat, but it's on the wrapper. Is that a send back situation, or did Brandon do the right thing there? Did
You're
Brandon
making it
take
sound
one
really bad, but it is really
team?
Bad, isn't it? It's really bad. It's really bad.
I just want to know where people fall on this. I have trouble sending things back because I do think that people work, like in kitchens, they work hard. Like, and I don't know. I feel like service People in the service industry work hard. I hate to have to do that. But I don't know what I would have done in that situation because I feel like it would have created an uncomfortable situation.
That's the comment. Right
there we go. Vince, you know what? Shut it down right now. Shut down the conversation. That's it. Right
Sweat,
there.
onion, chicken, teriyaki.
Bring in John Taffert and shut it down. The conversation's over.
Wow.
That's it. Sweat,
nicely
onion,
done,
chicken,
Vince.
Teriyaki.
Nicely done, Vince. Very strong. Strong. I'm quite pissed off that I didn't think of that, to be honest. I mean, this was like 2 weeks ago, and I never.
You know damn well that will not be the last we discuss of sweat, onion, chicken, teriyaki.
Oh, good Lord. All right. So, yes, I ate it. Again, like Chris said, I 100% can confirm that sweat dripped off onto the paper that they wrapped the sub in. I cannot confirm or deny that any sweat actually hit my sandwich directly. I get a lot of stuff on my sub, so there was a lot of leaning over. There was a lot of movement. Said Subway employee was rocking the prison bandana, brown paper towel headband under the Subway hat, strings of wet hair everywhere.
You are crushing
like I was a star.
You are doing more damage to the Subway industry than Jared ever could have done.
Yeah.
With this one story, unfortunately.
So anyway, yeah, I shared quite a few stories actually during that dinner. I wasn't sure which one you were going to go with, but that's a strong one. That is a strong one. So,
but the overall point was, I'm glad we got to spend some time together in the big city, man. That was one hell of a weekend. I know we're going to talk about the camp, but I think it's just anytime, anybody can get out to Chicago and spend a weekend out there, especially when the weather's nice and there's all the street festivals going on. Unfortunately, that was the part we missed, but great weekend.
Yeah, man. Saturday, we were supposed to go to a Cubs game, maybe pal around a little bit with some Michigan royalty.
Possibly.
It didn't happen, and that's a bummer. The weather really threw a wrench into that, and then it threw a wrench into it from our angle because we were like, baseball game, cool, but like we're not Cubs fans. Like I don't really want to go sit in the on and off rain all day, so let's just do the stuff afterwards. And then the group that we were supposed to meet up with was so wore out by the end of the delayed game in the rain and sitting out there that they didn't want to do anything afterwards. So the whole Saturday was pretty much a wash. And so Sunday rolled around, though. Beautiful day on Sunday. Wouldn't have mattered because we found out that the camp was indoors. We didn't even know that going in, but it was at the Max indoor facility in McCook, Illinois. 23 or 24 Michigan football players in attendance as counselors or instructors or whatever you want to call it, helping out the campers and going through the skills and drills and helping everybody get better and work hard. And it was cool to see. And you and I got to walk around on the field and chop it up with these guys and see what they were doing with the campers. And so after we left, of course, you and I, over the course of the camp itself and just as we're walking around and talking, and then afterwards, we kind of just found ourselves discussing, I don't know, man, 15, 20 different random little things, maybe more than that kind of stood out. I mean, obviously we're talking all day while we're there, and the camp was from 8 or 9 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. First session was with the little guys, the youngsters, middle school and elementary school kids, and then the second half of the day was with high school kids. Some guy named Charles Woodson crashed the party. I guess that was
Who the hell's that?
Yeah, I don't know. He just showed up like he freaking owns the place. No, Woodson.
I will say it's one of those people you talk about, like a Michael Jordan or a figure like that. When they show up, there is just like an orb of energy that surrounds them, and Charles certainly has that. There's no question.
So, Woodson's speech was pretty generic. It was kind of you're like work hard and you can get to the top. I mean, that's cool, but like those campers were digging it. It's Charles Woodson, man. He just showed up. They didn't know he was going to be there. Nobody knew he was going to be there except for JJ McCarthy's dad and a few others who kind of pulled some strings to get him there. Woodson was in Chicago doing an event for his wine brand at a pretty nice restaurant. Long story short, JJ's dad knew a guy who was involved in that and said, hey, you think we could get Charles to come over to the camp? And Charles obliged and gave, 10, 15 minutes of his time to speak and then headed out. So that was really cool. Just being able to be that close to Charles Woodson, being on the field with him, hearing him talk, and obviously the campers dug it. But what we wanted to spend some time talking about was the camp itself, some of the guys that were there that we saw up close, got a chance to talk to, and just some observations that we took away from it. So it was the Big Ten Champions Mega Camp. Was that the full name? Right?
That sounds
Big
about
Ten
right.
Champions Mega Camp. Again, for some young kids in the morning session, and then some older kids in the afternoon session. A couple decent players in there as far as campers were concerned. But you and I, Chris, we kind of went there more for the Michigan player side of things. Get to talk to some of the players' parents a little bit, and just, Mike Martin was there, former Michigan standout, former NFL player. He was going through some drills. Jared Wangler was there. Valiant brand was heavily involved. So it was just a very Michigan vibe. And so obviously we wanted to be part of that. But some of the current players that were there stuck out to us. And I'm going to start with the most obvious one. It's Junior Colson. Dude, I mean, he's about to be a sophomore. He played a lot as a true freshman. I can't believe his thighs fit in the building. That's where I'll start. It was unreal, dude. Seeing that kid's build. I mean, we watched him play all last year, but the dude looks like he has been going to leg day every day since he was born. And we talked about some of his numbers that we thought he might hit earlier this year. I think the number we did an over-under. I had the defensive players. I think I set the number at 99.5 tackles, basically to see if he would get over or under 100. I mean, if his thighs are any indication, he's got to be over, right?
Yeah. It's weird because he works hard. Like, that doesn't just happen, right? But
yeah,
there's nothing that I could do in the gym that would turn my lower body. Like, some of that is just, you're genetically gifted. And when you see this guy in person, and like I said, I referenced it in a recent post, but in that interview we did a couple of months back when we sat with JJ and Andrell and Donovan and asked them, who's the guy that people aren't talking about enough? Like, who's the guy that's really going to explode next year? They were all unanimous and said it pretty quickly that it was Junior Colson. And then
AKA Junebug.
Junebug, they called him. And then you get on the field with him and you stand next to him and you're like, oh shit, that's why. And there were a couple instances where I was down trying to take pictures and he was like trying to get out of the way. He's like, he's laying down. And I mean, he really couldn't get out of the way because he's just such a big dude and man, impressive. There's no question. Yes. The brick shit house. Now look, hold on a second.
Okay, go ahead.
Right, well, let's go with CJ.
I was just gonna say, CJ, the shorts weren't that small. It was just obnoxious how big the dude's thighs were.
Where are they supposed to go? They're not going to stay in that fabric. And what are you going to do? Custom shorts? Like, that guy cannot wear regular dungaree shorts like guys like you and I can. We can't do that. Or he can't do that. But the other thing was the brick shit house. I didn't realize that. Somebody had told me that brick shit house can often sometimes be used to refer to women who are built. I've never heard that. I've never referred to a woman as a brick shit. To me, it's always been like a, big, strong dude.
I personally wouldn't go down that path with the females, but hey, if that's what you want to do.
You ever call your wife a brick shit?
Certainly have not. She
comes out the bedroom wearing that new dress she bought, and you're like, you know what, babe? You look like a brick shit house. I don't think you're going to get very far with that.
And we'll go from there later on in the show.
Well, CJ, I've heard of like she's a brick house, but I've never heard of she's a shit brick house.
Okay.
Shit brick house is like it. There's a song called Brick Shit House.
That's hilarious. Well, I'll have to download for the next episode. Anyway, so yeah, Junior Colson stuck out more than I think anything.
Whatever
else.
He's built. Yes.
Yeah. He stuck out more than anything else. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because one, he might not even play that much this year, and two, he's a specialist, and we all know those guys aren't real people anyway. But Tommy Doman looks like a damn edge rusher, and he's a punter, kicker.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like, there was a lot of walk-on guys there. And this is no shade to walk-ons, but walk-on guys are walk-on guys for a reason. They're a little smaller, maybe not quite as athletic as the scholarship guys, but they bring a lot of value to the team. They usually work hard. Tommy Doman made the walk-ons look like twerps. Like, he's a punter. He's all of 6'4". I guarantee he's north of 200 pounds. And he was kind of going through some motions, talking with the guys about leg motions and how you need to equate it to a golf swing. And then you see him just put toe to leather, dude. And it was like an explosion. I mean, that, we didn't watch those guys a whole lot. Sledgehammer was also there, dude. That was cool to see.
Bang!
He was banging them into the nets with the other kickers and stuff. But Tommy Doman was just punters don't usually look like that, man. And it kind of makes you wonder, like, when he gets his shot, like, how much of a weapon he could potentially be. That's really all I wanted to say about him. I don't know if you had anything else to add, really.
I did. We kind of felt the same way. Like his build was impressive. Again, a lot of these guys, you see him from the press box, and you get to see him randomly here and there from the sideline. But when you're on the field, standing next to them, it just gives you an entirely different interpretation of how big some of these guys really are. And yeah, Zoltan Mesko. There's another guy who kind of had a similar build like that. So yeah, that's a good comparison for sure.
Speaking of on the field next to them and just feeling like an absolute, like a child, there was one point where I was looking for Chris, because we're both walking around the field, we're doing our own thing. And then I'm trying to find Chris, and he was literally like right over next to where I was. And I didn't even see him because it didn't register to me that Chris was an adult man, because he was standing in between Trevor Keegan, Zach Zinner, Tristan Bounds, and who was the other lineman that was there? Carson Barnhart. So all four of those guys were standing around in a circle kind of, and Chris was kind of in between talking to him. And it didn't even register to me that was Chris, who's not like a small guy, like
5'11",
small guy.
Yeah.
I'm not a small guy, but you get next to these dudes, and again, they're 19, 20, 21 years old. You forget that they're essentially kids because they're mammoth. And I got to be honest with you, dude. I know he hasn't played yet. I don't know what his future is going to be, but Tristan Bounds is so big and just long. He needs to put on some weight. You said it best. I think I'll let you put it in your own words. When you stand next to a guy like that, you almost feel like he's maybe in the wrong sport for a second.
he reminded me of like a Jokic or something like that. Like the dude, if he were playing like long arms, long build, looks like if he were to put on, I don't know, 15, 20 pounds of muscle mass. I mean, the guy looks like he could just be I didn't realize he was that big. Yeah. And you're right. You get down there and you say it about all those guys, but I was telling my wife that, like, I was standing with them and I forget that they're like 19 and 20-year-olds. Like you can tell they were the best offensive line unit in the country for a reason. And you look at them and you see the way they move at that size. They're squeezing into like $500,000 sports cars at that size. The agility it takes to do that alone shows you, what type of talent they're working with.
So Tristan Bounds listed at 6'8", 282 pounds on Michigan's official website, and he looks like he's about 240. There is no gut on that kid. He looks somehow, if you can imagine, at 282, he looks thin. He looks too thin to play the position right now. And those are the dudes that sometimes can really develop into like the NFL type of lineman, because they just have a body proportions that are abnormal. And I mean, dude, Trevor Keegan's not a small dude, but Bounds has got, 2, 3, 4 inches up over the top of him when he's standing there. Huge kid, but he doesn't look as ready as a guy like Trevor Keegan, as a guy like Zach Zinner for sure. And even Carson Barnhart. They just have they're just big ass dudes. Yeah. And when you stand next to them, you really get a sense of why they were the best line in the country last year. We're still all kind of waiting to see who might hold down that right tackle spot. Is it Carson Barnhart? Is it Trente Jones? Does Tristan Bounds make a play there? I mean, there's going to be some different people who get a look. I was blown away by Trevor Keegan's foot speed, lightness on his, like at one point there was like a break in the camp or something. All the campers went over to go get a drink, or they were talking to the coaches in the middle of the field or something. And Tristan Bounds was asking Trevor Keegan questions about different sets. And, and it's funny, they kept referring to Mozzie. They're like, dude, if Mozzie gets into you right here, it's over. If he gets you right here, it's over. And they were talking about how they do different things to get his arms off of them. And then that, Keegan would take like a 2-step left, 1 right, 2 left, 1 right, and just move. And he's floating around like a butterfly, dude, at like 325 pounds. And again, not only the size, but the athleticism, the agility, the bend, the just overall skill that these guys have to play at that level and to play that well to win the Joe Moore Award last year. And that was referenced quite a bit. There was no mistake who won that award when the coaches were talking about, these campers getting to work with these guys. It was really cool to see.
Yeah, and they were all phenomenal at teaching the game of football. And I think that was something that, we noticed throughout the camp, whether it was the guys, the offensive linemen, the guys that were helping with the D lineman drills, the quarterback, the wideouts. everybody was like, it didn't feel like it was a chore. Like every single Michigan football player that was there was eager to teach the game of football. And I just thought that was such a cool thing to be a part of, especially like, you know, given the way things are today, like when you get a collection of people into a building and there's something like that positive, it's nice to be a part of, man. And it's nice to see that the Michigan football players really take that leadership role seriously.
And on that note, the guy I was most impressed with all day when it came to teaching technique and detail and really getting in there and mixing it up and acting like this was his job for a day was Mazi Smith. I put up a couple tweets about it. I mean, we're bouncing around. We're trying to see different stuff all over the camp. There's 200-300 kids there. Again, the 20-25 players, and they're spread out all over this massive indoor facility. So we're moving around and looking as much as we can. I would be willing to bet that Mazi Smith put his hands on and, you know, moved around and coached individually every defensive lineman that was there. I mean, he was in it from start to finish. He was showing the different launch angles and the different techniques that you can use when you get low and all those hand placements that the offensive linemen were talking about that Mazi does. He was teaching that to the youngsters. You know, he was really getting in the mix with the pads and really showing how to get low and get leverage against these other guys. And then you just look at the dude like in a t-shirt and he just looks like he's so, and I remember covering Mazi when he was in high school and it was like the opposite. It was like all the talent in the world, hasn't done a very good job of taking care of his body. That was like a knock on him. He was a high 4-star kid, could really dominate a game at times in high school, but he would also disappear sometimes. I think those days are long gone because he's clearly taken it on. And he referenced it a lot when we had him on the podcast. This was months ago now, you know, his diet and working with Abigail O'Connor, the nutritionist at Michigan, and really getting after it in the weight room. And you and I both looked at him in that, you know, just walking around in a t-shirt. And we were like, dude, he looks ready for war right now.
Yeah. And for me, I noticed the same thing with AJ Henning basically all afternoon. I mean, he was like, when they would bring in the group of kids, like AJ Henning was in the middle, he was up front speaking. I mean, I think he was up front in front of the entire group multiple times throughout the afternoon, hands-on with the guys, showing them technique. Super, like I said, super excited, super motivated to help and teach the game of football. And so, you know, he really stood out to me as one of those guys. But again, Junior Colson was in that role really well. JJ McCarthy with the quarterbacks all afternoon, hands-on running through drills. Andrell Anthony, catching footballs from the receivers. I think, CJ Frazier makes a good point. These camps are phenomenal for these young kids. And I think that, as a young kid to be able to go in and play catch with JJ McCarthy, quarterback at the University of Michigan, it's got to be a pretty cool thing. And there were some ballers that were there. See, Brandon put me onto something. He was in the recruiting game a little bit. I didn't realize this. So when you see a young kid, quarterback in particular, show up to a camp with his hat on backwards, not pulled all the way down, but he's got the hat on backwards and sort of sitting on the top of his head. That kid can sling the ball. And I was looking, it rings true. If you see a kid with his hat on backwards at a football camp, not pulled down like this, but sitting up top, look out. Probably got a cannon.
Sitting up top real high, bill straight back. There's no tilt. Yeah, Chris can demonstrate a little bit. I mean, it's up there. The bill is way out the back. You know who rocked it like that almost every camp I ever saw him at? JJ McCarthy.
I don't have hair. I can't do it.
It's a flex. When quarterbacks go to a camp and they wear their hat like that, it's a flex. It's kind of a funny, but it really is like you kind of like, all right, you're going to get some attention if you're wearing a backwards hat out here. And the kids know that, and that's kind of a thing. But yeah, it was young kids. It was, like I said, some older kids. There were middle school kids there, and they were just working with them, very, very hands-on. I mean, Chris rattled off several names there. And another way that names were rattled off was the fact that, CJ mentioned the recruiting angle here. Michigan 3 years in a row landed the top player in the state of Illinois. It was Trevor Keegan, then it was AJ Henning, then it was JJ McCarthy. 3 years in a row, they got the best player in that state. And you could see why when they have a presence like this and you've got some big, JJ McCarthy, people know that name in that area. People know AJ Henning in that area. Trevor Keegan's from a little further away than the Chicago area, but still, that's a big-time starting offensive lineman from an Illinois high school. And at one point, JJ's dad brought all the guys up there who were from the Chicago area, and I think there were maybe 10, probably 10 guys. And there were some, like a couple walk-on guys, but then I already mentioned Henning, obviously JJ, Trevor Keegan, Jimmy Rolder ended up showing up a little later. He's a enrolled freshman linebacker. Tyler McLaurin was there. Tyler Morris at Nazareth with JJ. And then again, there were a couple walk-ons as well. And it was just, I thought that was really cool the way he brought them all up there, and then he just pointed at them and said their high school. And so, you've got kids out in that crowd of the 200, 300 campers. There's probably a big old chunk of them that go to those exact high schools now, and they see these guys in the maize and blue shirt with the number on it, played in the playoff, winning awards, fighting for starting jobs. It was just a really cool thing to see it kind of laid out like that. And I wanted to give you the floor here as I've brought up JJ's dad a couple of times now. So JJ's parents were there. Trevor Keegan's mom was there. Zach Zinner's parents were there. Greg Crippen was also there. I don't think I've mentioned him yet, the young offensive lineman. His family was there. A bunch of their siblings were there. It was a very family-oriented, organized feel, and you got there a little earlier than I did, and you've been corresponding with JJ's dad a little more than I have. So I just wanted to, I don't know, say what you feel like you need to say to explain what that vibe was like. And, dude, the freaking welcome we got from JJ's dad specifically, and just the whole gang kind of making this an awesome day on a Sunday in Chicago.
Yeah, well, I haven't been to a lot of camps like that, to have something to compare it to. But I was extremely impressed, not just with the amount of people that were there, the kids that were attending the camp, but how flawlessly it seemed like the whole thing was ran. I mean, from start to finish, everything was a smooth process. And yeah, the parent involvement was incredible, and had been corresponding with JJ's dad a little bit. Hadn't had really the opportunity to meet him in person until the camp, and I don't know, spend 5 minutes with the guy. They call him the mayor. I've heard a couple different things. The mayor of LaGrange, the mayor of Cook County. He's the mayor. He might be, the mayor of Illinois, whatever you want to call him. There's he's really, really good at what he does. And watching him run the camp and watch the other player, the player parent support that was there. Like you said, Zach Zinner's parents were there. Even JJ's grandparents were there, got to meet them. And you're right. It was a family atmosphere. And if you're a young kid and maybe you feel like you're intimidated to go to these camps because you're not sure what the environment is going to be like, I felt like all the guys that were there, everybody that was there, went out of their way to make these kids feel welcome, and that this was a place to learn and a place to get better. And not everything feels like that. And I think, again, that's a credit to, the people that are running the camp. And when you look at these kids and you're like, damn, JJ's really impressive, or damn, Zach Zinner's really impressive. And then you go and you talk to their parents for a little while and you're like, oh, okay, it makes sense. I see, where that comes from. So it's just really cool to kind of be in the mix and to, to be, like you said, get a warm welcome and to be a part of it, I think is, it's a blessing for both of us. And hopefully we get more opportunities to do that throughout the summer.
Yeah, for sure. AJ Henning's parents also there. His mom was she had a really
rocking the custom jacket. She had the low dunks on, the maize and blue dunks on. She was on point.
She was decked out. I would assume it was his little brother, maybe AJ. There was a little kid with a AJ Henning jersey running around all over the place in there with his parents. So again, just a real family feel. And yeah, you said it. It was very organized. They did a lot of work, a lot of on-field work. Kids were really getting in. And at the end, they lined them all up on the sidelines. And every single one of those Michigan players went down the whole row. And every single one of them signed every single one of those kids' shirts from that camp. And then if they wanted to, they could go around the other side of the divider. They had, one of those big dividing walls up inside this facility, and they could get group photos with some of these guys. And they had the Lamborghini sitting over there just for fun for the kids to go mess around it. And they had the 360 camera. I mean, it was flawless. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. We didn't really, they were super busy breaking everything down and trying to get out of there when we were leaving. But I would be interested to hear from JJ's dad, from some of the other parents, from the people who were involved in running the camp, how they thought that it went. Because from my standpoint, it was perfect. There were, saw a couple kids get dinged up. That's going to happen. But other than that, there was nothing negative about it. It was organized. Every kid got a chance to rep a little bit. Every kid was working. Everybody looked like they were having fun. And then at the end of the day, there was, some cool stuff where they got some autographs from 2025 Michigan players. I will call out one little twerp.
Oh no!
One little twerp at the front of the line of the middle school section. So whatever, 5th, 6th grade or whatever he might have been. He asked Trevor Keegan, "Hey Trevor, can you sign my shirt? Go Bucks." I thought Trevor might pound him into the turf because him and Donovan Edwards and everybody, they started trash talking a 12-year-old, and it was 100% warranted. And
that's a bold thing to do to the Big Ten champion Michigan Wolverines when you're standing face. I mean, give the kid credit. You know, he didn't do it. He didn't do it online. He didn't do it on a keyboard. He did it right there, face to face.
He asked 6'6", 324-pound Trevor Keegan, "Can you sign my jersey?" Go Bucks. Emphatically no. Emphatically no. I don't want to say if there were or were not swear words uttered, but don't do that.
But here's the thing, though. Like, that's the other part of this is, you talk about like the autographs and the pictures, and obviously like everybody wants a piece of Jay and the interviews. And I think when you watch, I mean, the way that these guys, it's just it must be a lot. That's all I can say. From start to finish, you're working with these kids, you're signing the autographs, you're doing the pictures, you're shaking the hands, you're doing all these different things, you're selling the merchandise. It's impressive they just do it. They seem to do it with ease, like they're built for it. Like, I know they're in their prime and this is the time when they're supposed to do it. But as an old man, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, it's just impressive. Well, old man, I'm 38 years old, so I'm not an old man, but it's impressive to sit back and sort of watch it all work. And yeah, going back to the original point again, it was like just a flawless machine, and everything seemed to work smoothly. So it was cool to be a part of it.
Found out a little bit about their background. It's because you and I found ourselves talking. So JJ's dad is what, probably 5'10", 5'11"?
About the same height. Yeah,
about our height, right around there, maybe a little shorter. His mom couldn't have been more than 5'4". I mean, she's a pretty small lady. JJ's all of 6'3" at this point. I mean, I feel like he kind of had a program 6'3" by his name coming out of high school, but he's there now. He's filled out. He's probably pushing 200 pounds. Obviously, the arm talent, the athleticism. We find out that JJ's dad played quarterback at a small college, that JJ's mom was a big-time figure skater. JJ's grandparents were big-time athletes, at least for their time and for what they were doing. I mean, it was, I don't know. It's always cool. There's a line that you and I have talked about trying to toe. Like, we're not trying to be friends with these people necessarily, but it is really cool to get a little bit of that background and really kind of understand where they came from and, start to piece together their journey that made, I mean, dude, like, he's fighting to be the starting quarterback at Michigan for the Big Ten champs, dude. That's freaking awesome. And then you start to learn about, like, oh, he was a hockey player and he started skating when he was 3 years old, and he had to make a decision about whether he was going to focus on hockey or football. And obviously he probably chose the right path. So it was just a cool thing, man, when you get to talk to those guys and gals and their families and everybody. And it was a really cool event. I mean, it was long, like you said, but they all did it with a smile. They all were doing interviews throughout. They were working hard with the campers. And then obviously, repping the Maize and Blue. We got a chance to talk to Andrell again. We got a chance to talk to Donovan again. Obviously, JJ, after having them on for our big sit-down interview a couple months back. And cool to see. Really, really cool to see. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about how genuinely heartfelt some of them seem to be about your hacked and disabled Instagram account.
Yes, it was. Yeah, honestly, one of the first people that came up. He tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, "Hey, did you get your account back?" And I looked at this guy, and I'm like, "Who the hell is this guy?" It's JJ's grandfather asking me if I got my Instagram account back. Turns out to be one of the coolest guys that I met all afternoon and got to spend some time with him. But yeah, I mean, there was genuine, I wasn't sure what the player reaction was going to be because I knew that some of those guys were impacted by it. Yeah. So you feel like, to be honest, you kind of feel like a dick and you're not sure. And it's, but it seemed like everybody was very sympathetic, and you'll be happy to know, the people out there will be happy to know, I have passed the upward turn. And now I'm at acceptance. I've accepted it.
Yeah, he's back. Chris is back. I'm not going to play that whole song. It's too long. It's too sad.
I tried to put the tears in.
But yeah, we're really hopeful that Chris's Instagram account will get back up and running and really be taken off by the time the fall rolls on. I know I heard you say that at least once that day. You're like, God, I'm glad it happened in May and not in October or November.
Very, very fortunate. Yeah.
Anyway, so that was cool to see. Again, genuine concern. Good dudes. stand-up young men. Had a chance to talk to a lot of them. Really cool day. And, like you said, hopefully we get to do that as many times as possible because it's valuable. It's valuable for a lot of reasons. I mean, we learn, we learn some football stuff here and there. We're not trying to dig too much in that kind of setting, but, it comes up. I talked to Tyler Morris for a couple minutes about his knee and how he was feeling. That's a kid that would have been like a top 100 recruit had he not blew out his knee before his senior season. And he's back up to full strength and ready to roll in an already talented and loaded wide receiver room. So little stuff like that, you do pick up some bits and pieces of info here, and we will trickle that out and give it wherever we see appropriate. But overall, a huge success for that camp. So big shout out to JJ and his family for sure, because they kind of were the front runners, but there were dozens of people involved in that thing, other player parents, and then the volunteers and different people like that. So really cool to spend some time with those guys on Sunday. Shifting gears a little bit, Chris, you put up an article. I'm going to let you kind of run with this because I didn't get too deep into it, and I know you put it up. And again, we're still kind of in the same boat with NIL in Michigan, I think, but it sounds like some things are happening. I know we talked to Jared Wangler at the camp. He said things are picking up. Valiant is involved with some NIL stuff. He's optimistic that things will ramp up and reach another level. I don't know yet. I'm still a little skeptical, but you put up an article today referencing NIL and a Michigan development. Lay it on me. Lay it on everybody.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, it's a step in the right direction. And my understanding is, the University of Michigan is working with, an outside group or firm in order to allow these athletes to use, or the Michigan student athletes to use, the trademark and of the university, the logos of the university. And that's something that we talked about, for a while, that you were seeing other schools allow student athletes to do. I mean, you talk about big brands when it comes to, universities across the world. The University of Michigan, the Block M, the winged helmet, those are two of the most recognized symbols in all of sports. And the fact that the student athletes weren't able to utilize that stuff as part of their NIL, I think really held them back in a lot of areas, and a lot of areas that I can speak to personally, just in terms of, one of the ways that these guys are trying to make money is through apparel deals. Well, if you can't put a winged helmet on something, or the Block M, purchasing that as a consumer, as a Michigan fan, it becomes a lot less desirable. So allowing players to be able to utilize that and capitalize on those trademarks, I think is an important step. I haven't seen how it's going to play out yet. So, it seems like it's a step in the right direction.
And what Chris is referencing there, and just for people who aren't that familiar with it or don't really understand what that means, he's not talking about Blake Corum going out and printing off 1,000 shirts with a giant Block M on it and just selling them himself. But it's
Correct.
weird. It's weird that a picture of Blake Corum, his own body and likeness, wearing the Michigan helmet in a game that he played in last year, he can't really use that. He can't use it because the winged helmet is on there. I don't think Michigan's uniform actually has a Block M on it anywhere, but you're right. I mean, throw the Block M on the shoulder up here and then a picture of Blake Corum. Right now they can't do that, as far as I know. And this NIL step in working with a firm is supposed to try to maybe work that in, because there's other schools who allowed that right out of the gate. LSU was all on board with that. I believe Michigan State and Ohio State have both come around on that. A lot of the other big name brands that have a very recognizable logo have said, yeah, that's fine. I know LSU is even like letting players use the facilities. Like if they wanted some company to come to the weight room or something to do something with the players, they were allowing even something like that. So it would be a big step in the right direction to just kind of free that up. And like I said, it's just a weird thing, because it is a very powerful and important brand. You don't want to just throw it around for nothing, but like, these are the freaking dudes wearing it, making it powerful and recognizable. So it's kind of a weird two-way street with them. But hopefully, again, this is what I've said from the very beginning. We're going all the way back a year ago now, July 1st of last year, when NIL went live. And I said very, very outwardly that Michigan was sucking it up. I caught a lot of shit for it, a lot, across social media, different message boards that took my name and ran with stuff that I said. And that's fine, because I knew what I was talking about. And now a year later, when you've had guys like Hunter Dickinson and other athletes come out and say, like, Michigan is not making this very easy for us, and now everybody seems to understand that NIL is not where it needs to be at Michigan, there are some steps in the right there are some steps in the right direction. And as I said on that July 1st, it could almost be like that, and Michigan could be in a absolute powerful position because of that brand, because of that name, because of that logo, because of the worldwide recognition. So it's not a lost cause, but they are still dragging their feet, and we are almost a year into this thing.
Well, here's the thing. I think it seems like to guys like us that they're dragging their feet, but then on the flip side, like I look at kind of the things that are going on with like a Nick Saban and a Jimbo Fisher and those accusations that are flying back and forth. And to me, I feel like the concern I had just as a fan is you knew programs like Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, those programs, if NIL allowed them to do it, they were going to do it. And if Michigan wasn't going to play that game, then inherently you would continue to fall further behind when in reality, or in theory, NIL was supposed to help even the playing field. And so I just think Michigan is slow boating it, but the more I see what's going on, it kind of feels like maybe they're doing this thing the right way, rolling it out piece by piece. I get it. I understand. Look at what else is going on out there. Look at how much of a shit show it is. I'm just saying, I'm glad that we're not dealing with that here yet, at least publicly. It seems like they want to there's a desire there to let the players capitalize on these things. It's not happening as fast as people like you and I would like it to happen. But the fact that there's change happening there is encouraging to me.
It's a good thing you have a shaved head because your hair would have been full blown blue just now. Blue hairs unite. I want Michigan to do it the right way.
You know what? The more I think about it, just scrap NIL altogether. It's ruining the purity of the game.
Quick question. I was just going to refer to you. I said, it's a good thing you have a shaved head. If I had just said it's a good thing you're bald, like, does one of those hit in a different area, or are you cool? Like,
no,
in today's world of being PC, like what can I say and what can I not say?
Listen, back in the day, like I'm talking, all right, we'll get a little off track here, but I started losing my hair, like losing it. I didn't go bald, but started losing it around 18 years old.
Do you need Sarah?
Yes, please. No. Bring her back. Started losing my hair at around 18 years old. Now, for you men out there, you know what you're doing at 18 years old. You're peacocking. You're trying to find your future wife. It's really hard to do that when you're losing your hair at that age. And so, I would say at that time, being called bald would have shattered my soul and spirit. But at this point, like I shaved my head, I'm married, I've got kids, I've got nothing to worry about. Like
bald AF,
I'm bald as fuck, and I'm all right with it. I'm cool.
Can we just get a shirt that just says bald AF on it?
Yes,
I swear we have so many shirt ideas. I don't know if they're ever going to happen, but
well, I don't know that I necessarily want to get in the.
It's really
cranking out.
It just struck me as really funny as you were finishing up your thought, and I was going to ask you that question. I'm like, can I call him bald in an open forum? Or is that like really frowned upon?
You know what? The fact that you asked, I think that's progress right there. That's how you approach it. Yes, you can say it.
I asked, and I also went with a softer term. I said, since you have a shaved head.
That's true. That's true.
Which, let's be honest,
it's not by it's partially true.
Some of it is. I'm playing it fast and loose with saying you have a shaved head. Am I not?
Here's the thing: if I just let my hair grow out for a year, if I didn't shave anything,
please do it.
If I didn't shave from my neck, from the front of my neck all the way up to the back of my neck, and just let it grow, I would have hair everywhere on my face, probably except like my forehead here and then the horseshoe. But everything else, like from here down, would be covered. For some odd reason, I got hair everywhere except where I really wanted it. That is what happened.
Please, can we get that to happen? Just a full year of hardcore growth.
Dude, I'd have to do a comb over. It'd get out of control here, man. It's thin. Yeah. It's slim pickings up there.
All right.
You're starting to talk like you can count individual sprouts. Can't look like that. Can't do that.
Yeah,
kill my street cred.
This fucking guy.
We're fully immersed right now. Both Chris and I.
This fucking guy.
Oh my God. Oh man. I've got a story. I have to tell it. Since we're on it, I have to tell it. Listen,
right.
so I am a guy. I do trim, I manscape, I landscape, I do the whole deal. I always put a towel down on the floor because I don't want it to get all over the floor. And then I take the towel and shake it out, yada, yada, yada. Well, I forgot to do that this time. Well, my son got out of the shower. I handed him a towel. I didn't realize it was the towel where, all of my clippings had dripped. So I dried him off. He was just covered in, it was sad. It was really sad.
You got Sully looking like a pincushion out there, bro. Cactus. He's a cactus. You turned him into a human cactus, dude. How'd you do him like that? Real quick, let's give Sully a shout out.
My
Sullivan
guy.
Bryler said to me when we were at dinner, apparently your daughter used to chew on walls, right?
When she was younger, yeah. I mean, chew on walls, eat sand. I mean, whatever.
I asked Sully, did you chew on walls? He said no. And let's not change that W to a B because then you'd have balls. And I was like, it's the best joke I've ever heard. That's the best joke I've ever heard.
7, by the way. So
fantastic. Made my night. I told at least 6 people that story since then.
7 while we're in the restaurant, 9:30 at night, drinking bottles of wine.
A little loopy.
Just got my 7-year-old and my 4-year-old there. No big deal.
Yeah, it was awesome. All right. Moving back to something that matters. Juwan Howard was in the news. I think it was right around in the middle of that camp, right? We were walking around on the field at the camp, and it kind of came screaming across Twitter. Adrian Wojnarowski and Shams Charania and all the other NBA dudes kind of ran with this thing a little bit, that Juwan Howard was courted by the Lakers and he shot him down. I don't know exactly how that went. I don't think Juwan put a statement out or anything like that, but obviously the people deeply rooted in covering the NBA got word that Juwan was contacted, and he immediately squashed it and said, no thanks. And I just, first of all, I'm not surprised. There's a couple reasons. I was going to put an article together about this. I may still do that. Like the 5 reasons why Juwan Howard is coming back to Michigan. I think there's quite, as it specifically pertains to the Lakers. Couple things. One, the Lakers blow. They didn't make the playoffs last year. They didn't even make the top 10 of the West. They're not good. Even with a healthy Anthony Davis, who the hell knows what Russell Westbrook is doing? And then you've got LeBron, who's our age. Now, he played out of his mind last year, but dude, he's 38. He's going to be 38 when the next season rolls around. It's just not that good of a roster. They're not deep. They don't have a lot of depth. Secondly, Juwan's not running that team. LeBron's running that team. And even though those two guys have a really good relationship from their time in Miami, I think there's a ton of mutual respect. That's just not a situation that Juwan Howard would want to be in, I don't think. And then you've got his sons. Both of them will be at Michigan next year, so he'll have at least both of his sons for the next 2 years, probably minimum, maybe 3. And so that's obviously really attractive. And he loves Michigan. It's clear. He teases, he rags on himself about how often he cries when he's at the podium because of how much he loves Michigan, and that's incredible. That's one of the reasons why he, whether he wins or loses, he's always going to have the best interest of Michigan at hand. He's not using Michigan as a stepping stone. He's not looking for an exit door. He's there to stay. Now, I do think that the NBA will come calling. He's not that old. He's got to build up a resume. He's got to show what he can do as a head coach, and the NBA will be there. But I think there's some pretty obvious reasons why. I know we were just kind of passing on the field, and I'm like, oh, dude, you see this Juwan news? This is pretty big. Probably need to put something together about this. I guess I'll ask it to you that way. 1, were you shocked? I think I already know the answer. And 2, did I leave anything out? Why did this come up and get squashed so quickly?
Yeah, no, I didn't think for all the reasons you listed. I just think that there's too much at the University of Michigan for him to walk. Think about not only what he's walking or would be walking away from currently, but from what's possible in the next few years, what he could accomplish here. I think when he came here, he had specific goals and things he wanted to accomplish. And I don't think he's done that yet. And I think the University of Michigan means more to him than to leave here without accomplishing those things. And I know a lot of people will say that coaches feel, sentimental about a job and then they'll leave, the next week. But I do feel that it's genuine with Juwan Howard and that he definitely has some things he wants to accomplish. And then, you throw in the fact that he has the opportunity to coach his sons. He loves the University of Michigan. And then what's going on with the Lakers? They're not very good. You're right. That's LeBron's team. Yeah, you don't know what's going on with Russell Westbrook, but guess what? You don't know what's going on with LeBron James either. I mean, who knows what's going on with these guys? Michigan is a sure thing, just like for Jim Harbaugh, Michigan is a sure thing. And I think it's going to be a hard place for him to leave. And I don't see that happening, for at least another 5 years.
It is kind of crazy though, because we talked about this when Jim Harbaugh flirted with the NFL when what were some of the decent jobs were available. I mean, the Raiders is a pretty historic franchise. That's a pretty good gig in the NFL.
Yeah.
The Bears, that's not right now, maybe not heading into the 2022 season, but in terms like stacking up like the Bears franchise versus the Jaguars franchise, for instance, like there's some lore there. The Giants opened up again, not a great situation right now, but that's the New York Giants, man. That's a team of teams when it comes to the NFL. There is no team like that in the NBA like the Lakers. And so for Juwan to almost immediately squash that down, I think really solidifies his intentions, like you said. Whether he had a 3-point, 5-point, 10-point, 20-point checklist of what he wanted to do at Michigan, it's very clear that he's completely serious about that checklist and wants to do some things at Michigan. I think he's already done one. He's already won a Big Ten championship. That's pretty big. In 3 years, he's done that. Yeah, Boston would be another. It's the Lakers and Boston. Those are the two teams in the NBA. I would argue Boston, I know, has more titles, but I would argue that the Lakers is the best franchise in the NBA. I think you could go back and forth between Boston and LA, but I mean, like, first of all, it's Los Angeles. It's the star.
You don't think Chicago could lure him away?
Yeah, being a Chicago kid, that's probably, and the Bulls are up there too, certainly just because of their history as well. But I mean, that's a debate. You could get into that debate and go back and forth. But point is, it's the freaking Lakers, and they do have LeBron. I mean, there's certainly some cons that come with coaching LeBron, but he's still LeBron James. He still averaged damn near 30 last year at 37 years old. And even though they didn't make the playoffs, he's one of the 4 or 5 or 6 best players in the league still, even heading into year 20. So there's a lot there. And for him to squash it almost immediately, I think just really speaks to his seriousness about being at Michigan and what that means to. I think it's funny that his wife always has to come out and say something about it's not just about his sons. And I'm thinking why is that who cares if it is? That's freaking amazing. He gets to coach both of his sons at his alma mater, and they're good. It's not like just some token job that he gets to. It's freaking Michigan, man. He already won a Big Ten title, and there's probably going to be pretty decent next year, depending on the way some things fall here. That was another thing. Musa Diabate, Caleb Houston, still no final decision. They have until it's next week sometime, June 1st, whatever day of the week that is next week. They have until then to make a final decision about whether or not they're going to stay in the draft or not. And it kind of sounds like they both are, just from, reading the tea leaves and gathering things from around, the internet, that maybe they've both been promised a first round draft grade from some team. So we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. But I think the fact that a franchise with the power that of the Lakers, they didn't offer him the job, but even the fact that they came calling, he was like, "Nah, I'm good." When he does have a really strong relationship with LeBron, and that is the Lake Show, man. I mean, that's it. That's the pinnacle of coaching in the NBA. And he was, all set. I'm all set. I'm gonna stay right here in Ann Arbor and see what this thing's all about. And I think that's great for him. And imagine being a player on that team. Damn, my coach could have maybe went to the Lakers and he's going to coach my dumb ass instead. That's powerful.
Or he's sitting in my living room recruiting me right now.
Yeah.
Wants me to come play ball for him. I feel like that's the other thing we didn't talk about is the other aspect to being at the University of Michigan, like the recruiting and he's going to all of these, these games and watching recruits play. To me, he's tweeting about the softball team and he's involved in what's going on campus. It's more than just, being able to make a coaching move. And I think you made a good point. He's truly embracing everything about his time in Ann Arbor. And I think it's going to have to be the perfect fit at the perfect time. And it's just right now is definitely not that. I never feared at all that he would leave after this past season.
Right. No, I'm with you. And again, if the Lakers can't do it, now the Lakers are probably better than what they looked this year. Anthony Davis was hurt a ton. LeBron missed some time. Russell Westbrook didn't look like a fit. Whatever. They'll probably be better next year. It doesn't matter. He for him to shoot down the Lakers like that, I think speaks volumes to what he's all about at Michigan. So there you go. There is that. Last thing, Chris, a fun one. I didn't tell you about this. I didn't want to tell you about this. I have a list.
How dare you?
It's actually harder than I thought. That's why I put a slight list together, and I'll throw some names at you if you're struggling to come up with some off the dome.
All right. You slid in a ball joke there. You hear the dome. You don't say that to a guy with a beautiful head of hair.
Hey. I know.
Just take it easy. Take it easy.
So yeah, off the top of the cue ball, if you can come up with some of these things, no, here I saw this randomly on Twitter. It doesn't really have anything to do with Michigan, but when I read it, I started thinking, and it turned into an interesting discussion with myself. So I thought I'd throw it on the pod here, and we'll just go through it because you and I have had some discussions about different names on this list. So I want to get your opinion. Maybe it's Jim Harbaugh. Maybe it's not. Maybe he's way down your list. Okay. But the question on Twitter was, if you're a recruit and you have your exact brain that you have right now, so don't worry about what position necessarily or what kind of system. If you were a recruit and you had your brain, which college coach would you love to play for? Which college coach would you absolutely love to go sit and listen to them talk and teach and be
not just Big Ten, just any coach
across the country? And I made a list of about 20 names that appealed to me. Yes, college only. Of 15 or 20 names that appealed to me at least a little bit, and I wanted to see if any of them lined up for you and I. First of all, let's start here. This is an easy one.
Would they have to be currently employed?
Well, I don't know. Maybe. Why do you think? Is there a guy out there who?
There's a couple.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this one first, and then you can spitball off into what you want to.
Okay.
Is Jim Harbaugh in your top 5?
A guy that I'd want to play for?
Correct.
I feel compelled to say yes.
I don't think he's in mine.
Listen, here's can I say why?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I feel like that sounds like a dickhead thing to say. My brain, I'm a guy who likes offense. I'm wired that way. And anybody who listens to us talk knows that we like that stuff. That's why we're pulling for somebody like JJ McCarthy to be under center or behind center, because we know what he's capable of offensively. To me, I would just want to play for a guy who has more of a desire to really move the ball down the field quickly, be very aggressive offensively. So yeah, I would say right there, Lane Kiffin is pretty high on the list.
Dude, Lane Train might be number one.
The Lane Train. Yeah.
He might be number one for me because of his offense. He seems like he's a hilarious dude. He's probably a little greasy. I get it. I know.
Part of the appeal.
Well, exactly. When I read the question, I'm like, all right, well, first of all, I'm 37. So I think about this a little differently than I would be if I was actually 17 or 18 or 19.
Yeah.
Which guy would I want to go have a beer with? Like, who do I want to spend time with? That's how I kind of took it. That's why I said we're keeping it a little bit simple. We're dumbing it down a little bit. Don't say like, oh, I'm a 5-star QB. I want to throw it 50 times a game.
Sure, yeah.
Play for Mike Leach or whatever, whatever. He's on my list, by the way, as a potential guy I'd want to play. It's fucking hilarious. But Lane Kiffin, dude, he's right there for me. He would be a hard guy to top on that list if you're talking purely just spending some time with and getting to know as a person as your coach. He's right there for me. And who else popped up for you?
That's why I asked if they had to be, because I was thinking Ed Orgeron. I was thinking, his personality and the way he is, like, he just seems like such an interesting guy, whether you were at practice or especially if you were at a bar, just, throwing some back with him. Coach O seems like a really interesting guy to hang with. Very intense.
I'm not sure he can read, so that's kind of a deal breaker for me. I mean, like,
You don't have to read when you know how to fucking. Wait, sorry, I'm not okay.
We've said a couple. We've said a couple.
Well, you don't. He's a fun guy to be around. I don't care whether or not he can read.
Here's a question that's gonna. I mean, you might have to quit your job tonight. Is Mel Tucker ahead of Jim Harbaugh on your list?
No, because you know what? Mel Tucker, as of late, I think it's the fault of really the Michigan State fans, but as of late has really started to rub me the wrong way. Just like all of East Lansing, they're getting a little too big for their britches over there in East Lansing. And so, no, I wouldn't want to hang with Mel Tucker. I wouldn't want to play for Mel Tucker. I think that Mel Tucker needs to just kind of tone it down a little bit with the cigars and the sparklers and the recruiting and all this stuff and the chopping the wood and the scores on the rings. I think he just,
just back it down a little bit, Melvin.
Tone it the hell down, Mel.
Is his name Melvin? I hope it is.
It is now.
That's what I call
it. As far
him.
as I'm concerned.
All right, I'm going to rattle off a few of the names that. So I went on to I just Googled college football head coaches. I went through the whole list, and any name that kind of jumped out, I just typed it down. And I probably missed some. I just did this quickly, and I knew it was just going to be kind of a fun thing to wrap up the pod here for the last couple minutes. Tell me what you think of these names. If I'm way off, would you agree? Would you disagree? Hell yes, hell no type of thing. Here we go. Mike Norvell, head coach at Florida State. Young dude. Listen, Chris, wait. He played wide. He's white. He played wide receiver, and he had cornrows in college. Does that do anything for you?
It takes it from a no to a hell no. An absolute no. I don't want to. I'm getting Scott Frost vibes. No, absolutely not.
Okay. Mario Cristobal.
No.
Okay.
No interest.
All right. I'm okay.
I need some flair. I need some personality.
Then I got your guy. He's old as hell, but Mac Brown.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, you got Texas, North Carolina. Yeah, I'd play for him.
He appeals to me.
Yeah,
I don't know a lot about him. Haven't watched a lot of his games in recent years, but
I feel like he'd be a real prick. But
maybe. This one is more. See, this one I couldn't help but really let his coaching acumen seep in. But Dave Aranda, big time offensive guy. I don't know a lot about him in terms of his personality, but I hear that name and I just think I think he would be fun to play for.
He wouldn't even be on my radar. Even be on my radar.
Well, Michigan fans are going to know this name, and you know where I stand and where I've stood for a while. But Matt Campbell.
I think I've told you this before. I struggle with his face. I'm not a fan of his face, so I don't know that I could play for a man. If I don't like your face, I can't play for you. It's not his fault. I'm sure he's a great guy, good at what he does.
Mike Gundy. The Tennessee waterfall in full effect, bro.
No. I want nothing to do with that.
Wow.
No. That guy, no. That's the guy. Well, I'm not going to go off on guys like Mike Gundy, but no. The answer would be no.
All right, I asked you if you would put him ahead of Jim Harbaugh, and you said no. But Mel Tucker, just in general, you not like him quite a bit.
I would say, but taking the rivalry out of it, he does seem like it's a decent guy to hang out with. I mean, able to to vibe with the younger generation, which I think is important now in recruiting, and he seems to have a hold on that. But yeah, Gundy, listen, give it up. Give up the gimmick. Why are you doing that? Just cut it off and take your damn self and your job seriously. It was cool for a year.
For real. I'm a man. I'm 40. All right. Another one that Michigan fans have usually a pretty strong opinion in one way or the other about this dude, Pat Fitzgerald, Northwestern.
Yeah, I like him. I like him. I think he's just a solid dude, solid coach, does things the right way.
He might not be the most fun to have a beer with on this list, but I feel like here's the thing with Pat Fitzgerald. I feel like he's so good at his job and he's so organized and structured and buttoned up that he's probably not like that away from work. That's how I feel about Pat Fitzgerald. He's a former linebacker. He could probably drink a sixer in like 8 minutes or something. You know what I mean?
Cuts it loose. I think he cuts it
loose. Yeah. Here's my guy. This is my guy, dude.
Is it Mike Leach?
He's my guy too, but this is my guy, Jim Mora Jr. Jim Mora Jr. And look, I got to know him like semi-personally because he was doing some work for SI last season. So I literally went on and did like multiple one-on-one Zoom talks with him. And I came away really impressed. I read about what he's done as a head coach, and he's actually been pretty decent. I mean, he's at a spot at UConn right now that's going to be really tough. They were awful last year, and we're going to see him against Michigan this year. But I like him as a dude. Some of the stuff he would talk about other coaches and stuff that it just aligned with exactly what I think and feel about some of these guys. And so I was like, dude, I like this guy. I like him a lot. So I'm a little biased there because he's maybe the only one on this whole list that I've actually talked to before. But I'm a pretty big fan of Jim Mora. Interesting one here. Everybody's going to know this name that pays attention to Michigan. Brady Hoke. Brady Hoke.
I would walk to Michigan. I would have walked. That's my Brady Hoke.
Brady Hoke.
Was it good?
I do like hot dogs.
This is Michigan.
For
God's sakes.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, dude seemed like he was a hell of a recruiter. You know, he brought a lot of talent to Ann Arbor. He seemed like a good guy. Yeah, I wouldn't mind playing for Brady Hoke.
You know where that hot dog line came from, right? I think at the time it was Big Ten coaches were reading mean tweets about themselves. They did
like the Big Ten media or whatever.
Yes.
Thing. Yeah.
And somebody tweeted that Brady Hoke wears hot dog water for cologne, and he said, "I do like hot dogs." That's what he said. It's amazing. It's an amazing response. Another Michigan name, Jed Fish. Jed Fish.
Yeah, seems like a cool guy. Wants to throw the ball around. He's an offensive minded guy. I'd play for him.
Lincoln Riley,
what I remember.
Lincoln Riley, slime ball. But dude, the man is a savant when it comes to coaching offense.
He's another one of those.
He gets it.
I'm sorry, it's the face issue again. I'm not a fan of the face.
He's got a dumb face. I mean, we already talked about it. Lane Kiffin is a resounding yes, is he not?
He's an absolute yes.
The force, the Lane.
I mean,
train,
if you were, I think the easiest thing to do is come up with your top 5, right? Like Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin's probably number 1, and then you got, who else are you putting up there?
I'd probably have. I don't know, dude. I like Matt Campbell. I know you don't like his face, but I like everything he stands for, and I think he's done a good job at Iowa State.
It's
Mac Brown. I think Mac Brown would be up there pretty high for me.
Yeah.
Maybe Pat Fitzgerald, who we talked about a good bit there. And then last but certainly not least is Mike Leach. Dude's is an American treasure.
Well, see, I think if you're gonna love Mike Leach, you got to love Jim Harbaugh. They're kind of cut from the same cloth. So to me, those guys are in the same.
You know what? Deion wasn't on the list because they're not FBS. So I missed that when I went through my list. Deion Sanders, Jackson State. Would you play for that guy?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, how would you, I think he's a little sizzle. He's a little sizzle, but maybe
think about when you're a kid, when you're that age and you're a recruit and a guy like Deion Sanders is talking to you. I mean, talk about people that have an aura around them, a glow. I mean, dude, I still think Deion Sanders in the Atlanta Falcons uniform is still like the coolest athlete era look of all time. The do-rag hanging out the back. I love the do-rag. I love the do-rag.
I think maybe you haven't seen, but Deion used to like lay out his outfit like first day of school before every game. There's like a pretty viral. There's like a pretty viral photo of him with his uniform laid out, and each wristband is in the right spot, and his sock. Dude, it's just so much swag for like early '90s. Like it's
Lewis Blake, get that shit off of here. PJ
I didn't even
Fleck,
put him on my list.
If PJ Fleck came to my house to recruit me, I would do it like if I didn't want trick-or-treaters to come. I'd shut the lights off and peek out through the blinds and wait for him to leave. I got a feeling though PJ Fleck would keep knocking for a while. He'd be persistent. Hey, come on. Hey, I know you're in there. Where's like the energy level? Get the energy up.
Down your chimney like a rat.
I'll just tunnel my way in.
Yeah. Just with his Ferragamo boots and his damn Hermes belts and shit, dude. Him and his wife showed up at Big Ten Media Days that one year, and they were like walking by and like laughing at Harbaugh because Harbaugh was up there in a suit and a hat. And I'm like, PJ, if you cared as much about your coaching job as you did your designer belts, you might have something.
He does look good. I'll give him that.
Rich Rod. That's an interesting name to throw out there. I like Rich Rod a lot more than the average.
Yeah,
Michigan
I was going to
fan.
say I don't hate Rich Rod as much as I think a lot of Michigan fans do.
So there you go. That was my little fun topic that I saw on Twitter. I thought I'd throw it out there and see how it went. I think it went pretty good. Filled up our last 10 or 15. Hey, man, we'll be back in another week unless we've got a dying, pressing issue to cover. You'll see us again on Wednesday night next week at 7 o'clock. Thanks for listening, everybody. Pretty good crowd tonight. Thanks for the comments and the discussion and the interaction as always.
You know what?
Any last words?
Yeah, I'm saying maybe we should bring back maybe the next Wednesday we should bring back the fan-led show. We haven't done that in a while, and I'd like the fans. That's always fun when they bring the questions and we do the interaction throughout the hour. I really enjoy that. So maybe let's get something planned and we'll send out the bat signal for some fan questions and get into it.
Promote the hell out of it for the next week, and let's get a bunch of people in here and do some stuff on Wednesday, something that everybody can be involved with. Let's do it. I like it. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will see you in a week. Take care.